everyone, welcome to Odds Serie A. We are unveiling this new season 23-24 after Ferragosto, very important for all Italians, with our master, our guide, Daniele Fisichella. How are you, Dani?
Ciao Edo, ciao everyone. Well, we are charged up, refreshed, had a bit of holiday, went to Italy, now I'm back in England. It's been good. It's been good summer. A lot of happened in Italy. A lot will happen still until the beginning of until the end of the transfer market. But now, yes, Serie A only 3 days away. The most competitive title race in Europe, top 5 leagues for sure.
Calcio Mercato is burning. We have 3 new teams, of course, Frosinone, Genoa, and Cagliari. We have already one comment from Benjamin and from Bonjour. Benjamin actually in Italy. So, guys, let's analyze this new season. We are going to talk a lot about the transfer market, of course, what Danny thinks about the title race. And don't forget, press the like if you enjoy the video, subscribe to our channel. And now let's go on with the show. And don't forget, of course, if you want to place your bets, we've teamed up with 1xBet and we get 30% extra for your welcome bonus. So if you click in the link below, you will have an extra 30%. You just have to write Danny promo code ODDSPEDIAYOUTUBE and you can have a welcome bonus up to 130%. So it's 520 euros maximum to bet, for instance, on the games we have on Serie A. Danny, this season starts on Saturday evening. We can say Empoli, Verona, and Frosinone. Napoli are the first 2 games. Let's focus in Empoli, Verona. Empoli, they saved easily, we can say, the category last season. We still have Paolo Zanetti as the manager, and you were saying that Vicario was one of the best goalkeepers in Serie A last season. Now he went to sports. On the other hand, we have Verona saved in the playouts in this pareggio against Spezia. Perhaps they also have a tough season. This one, Danny, they don't seem to have a better squad than last season so far.
No, they don't. And I think Verona, the Scaligeri, are going to struggle. Going to be a long season for them because they added a little bit of quality in Saponara from Fiorentina. They got a former Barcelona youth team player, Mbula. But apart from that, they still seem to have the same issues as last season. They lack goals and they lack quality midfielders. So I think it's going to be tough. Last season, really, they got saved by the skin of the teeth only because Spezia were worse than them, really. And in the end, in the second round of fixtures, they collected a few more points. But it wasn't a great watch for Verona, who we don't have to forget in 2022, 2023, at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season, they lost Caprari, Simeone, Barak, and really, they haven't replaced them properly. They're with few key absentees for this game as well. Lazovic, Faraoni, Hien. I'm really curious to see how the new manager, Baroni, who last season saved Lecce with a very mean, strong defense is gonna perform. I would expect most of Verona games to be under this season. And now when it comes to Empoli, they're a young side, exciting in a way, because obviously the young players, and you look, for example, at the likes of Baldanzi, are getting more and more experienced. And they got saved last season by playing good football, I must say. They were entertaining, and they won the last 4 games at home last season. So they finished strongly, 4 wins in the last 6, including a win against Juventus. But, there's been a bit of change, as you mentioned. No longer Vicario in goal, who last season was again outstanding, and the new man is Caprile, who they signed from Bari. Big boots to fill. Last season, if you look at the expected goals against, they should have conceded 14 more goals. So that tells you, really, things go wrong for them. If Caprile doesn't pull out all the strings as Vicario did, they could be really in trouble. A team that sometimes, suffers a bit too much. Sold Parisi to Fiorentina, one of the best left back in Italy, and the key mans are going to be, of course, Ciccio Caputo up front. Last 3 games between these two sides, by the way, they finished 1-1 draw, so it could be another draw affair here, but I mean, you have to take this as a pinch of salt. First game of the season, you gotta be careful, I think, with your pick. I'm gonna go for an Asian handicap 0 for Empoli in the first half. 180. If they win the first half at the Castellani, you win. If he ends in a draw, no worries. You get your money back. You don't want to start the Serie A campaign with a defeat, with a loss in the first pick.
Indeed, we were checking also both teams to score, same as in the last 3 games, is 1.98. Benjamin is going for double chance and over 1.5 goals. I guess the over is the tricky one thing here. Bonjovu, Empoli clean sheet in the first half. Let's see, 2 teams that probably will fight to avoid relegation. And at the same time, we have a newly promoted team, Frosinone from Lazio, same region as the capital in Rome, playing against the champions Napoli. But as we knew from the last weeks of the last season, Spalletti is gone, and now we have Rudy Garcia, who we saw in Serie A managing Roma, and so far, Danny, they've kept the key players. I think this is the main thing we have to say about Napoli. Kim is the only big departure so far.
And we expected that. I think probably alongside Kim, also Zielinski will leave for Saudi Arabia, but Napoli have been active in the transfer market. Saying Nathan from Brazil, plays for Leipzig. Gavi Vega, of course, very important, from Celta Vigo. Cajusto, they're not just finishing the midfield. I think they need a little bit, couple more players, but I don't understand why, and you will see the odds for the winners down in the screen, why they're not favorites to win the title, and they were so far apart from Inter. Inter pays 2.7, Napoli pays 4. I think Napoli at 4 is a very, very good price. Let's not forget, last season, 28 wins for Napoli, 14 wins at home, 14 wins away, 90 points in total. They finish 18 points above Inter. Look at the 2 starting 11. Have Inter got better in the Napoli? No, I don't think they are. I think Napoli as a starting 11 is the best one in Serie A. Of course, last season there are a couple of players, the likes of Di Lorenzo, Mararui, Lobotka, who perhaps overperformed. But I think when you got the top goal scorer, Osimhen, the top assist man, Kvaratskhelia, I think you should be considered as close as favorite as possible. Last season, they only lost 2 away games. They were top of the away table. Look, you have to feel for Frosinone, because they couldn't have a tougher start of the season. Newly promoted. Not only that, but a lot of changes from last season, because last season they had a lot of players on loan, and now they've gone back to their previous club. For example, the top scorer, Mulattieri, now he was from Inter, now plays for Sassuolo. Boloca was on loan too. They dominated Serie B last season, best attack and best defense, but they were set up differently from what they're going to be set up this season when they play with Grosso. Fabio Grosso is a manager that likes his team to set up a little bit deeper than what perhaps Di Francesco, the new man in charge, wants to. Di Francesco is a manager like his teams to attack. We saw him at Roma. It was entertaining, but the last few experiences in Serie A with Cagliari and Verona have been really, really bad. Look, the team looks incomplete. They look young. These are not the kind of games that Frosinone needs to win to get saved. And you can see on the comment, people are expecting a heavy defeat for Frosinone. I think Napoli are gonna walk it. This one, frankly, actually 143 is very, very high for Napoli against the newly promoted side. I think it's gonna be a win for the champions, and it's gonna be a good win. Minus 1.25 on the Asian handicap is really good. 196, almost doubles your stake. If Napoli wins by 2 goals, you win. If they only win by 1 goal, you lose half your stake. How good is that?
It is good. Indeed, 1-4 for Napoli. Khalif is telling us Napoli to win 2-0 for Ibrahim. And other options for Bonjovu going for the Asian handicap corners for Napoli. Benjamin Frosinone at least to score 1 goal. Well, you've brought up a topic, Danny, very interesting, and I want to ask also our audience their favorite to win the title, because this Scudetto is going to be very contested, I think, and you've mentioned before, you made a spoiler, Danny, Inter are the favorites, 2.9, then Napoli with 4, then Juve with 4.5, and then Milan, who probably did the best market perhaps in Italy, but you will tell me later. These are the odds for the champions. Let's see if we see a more contested Serie A than last season, because as we know, Napoli had a great walk, but they changed manager. Let's see this new Napoli with Rudy Garcia in charge. And Frosinone, one of the newly promoted teams. Another one is Genoa coming back to Serie A after one season in Serie B. Now remember, it's Sampdoria, the other team in Genoa that are in Serie B, Danny, and their first game is against Fiorentina, always with Vincenzo Italiano. Fiorentina, they were pretty poor, I would say, in Serie A last season because they were focused in the conference, in the cup. They ended up losing both titles. They sold Cabral, but for instance, they got Enzola, a player that I think you like a lot from Spezia. Some big players, big names like Jerry Mina. What do you expect also about this Genoa with, if I'm not wrong, Danny, Matteo Retegui? Very interesting name to have in the squad.
Absolutely. Italy's number 9. I mean, been one of the recent call-up of Mancini, now the former Italian manager. But Retegui started well the season. 2 goals in Coppa Italia against Modena, the first one after 37 seconds. He is a goal scorer. If he learns the movement inside the box, he's got the pedigree to score a few goals. And I think overall, this Genoa side, they are one to look out for. I think they got goals, and I think that what will make them save at the end of the season. They got goal scorers, Retegui, good Munson. They've added Messias as well. 3-5-2 formation, but with good wing backs, especially Martin on the left-hand side. I think they'll produce plenty of crosses, plenty of chances, especially at home. They're going to be one to look out for. They got good depth as well. You know, they added the Winter from Empoli. Maybe the issue here could be the defense. They got a bit of rapidity with Vasquez, Vogliacco, but maybe not great experience there. Some of the defending against Modena and Coppa Italia was a little bit suspect. But for this game, I would expect goals. I would expect both teams to go at it. Fiorentina, we know last season were an attacking side, scored an average of 1.63 goals in all competition, squandered few chances in Serie A as well, always look potent up front. They also brought Artur Melo, Sabiri, Beltran from River Plate, 14 goals with the Argentinians this season. She's the new signing to replace Cabral. The only issue I go with Fiorentina, 2 issues really, need to be able to capitalize the chance they create. Last season, they were 3rd for shots in Serie A and 1st for corner taken. And sometimes they need to manage the situations in games a little bit better. They cannot just go full gas, full throttle on the attack. They need to know how sometimes to sit back, defend positionally. I mean, the way they lost the Europa Conference League final in the last minute with such a high line was criminal. But you mentioned rightly, I mean, the away form last season was not great, only 23 points away, 4 wins in the last 8 Serie A games away. Yes, they were distracted by the Coppa Italia final and the run into the Conference League final. I think they're going to be goals here. Over 2.25 goals, 185. This is an Asian handicap, of course. Only 2 goals in the game, you lose half your stake. More than 2 goals in the game, you win 185.
You agree with our audience, Danny? Most of the guys are going for goals. Genoa 1, Fiorentina 2 for Khalif. Over for Ibrahim as well, over 1.5 goals. Both teams to score, as we can see now in the screen, and over 2.5 goals. So let's expect goals in this Genoa Fiorentina. And the last game we have on Saturday is the favorite to the title, Inter Milan Monza. Inter still with Simone Inzaghi. He has a lot of lives in Inter bench, and after losing, as we all know, the Champions League final, they sold Onana to Man United. Brozovic is also gone to Arabia. Skriniar gone. Lukaku gone. Dani, they got Marcus Thuram, for instance, Jan Sommer. And Monza, they spent a lot of money in the transfer market. Pessina, Caprari, Petagna, some numbers. What do you expect about these 2 teams? Monza still growing, perhaps closer to the European spots. Inter doing better this season in Serie A?
If you look at the lineup of the squad that played the Champions League final against Manchester City, and Inter went really, really close to score a goal and to equalize. 10 players from the squad have left. So there's been a lot of turnover, mostly in the reserves players, the likes of Gagliardini, D'Ambrosio, Skriniar was injured. Of course, you mentioned Onana, Lukaku, Dzeko, etc. But the key question is, has Inter got stronger this season as things stands today, 16th of August? I don't think they are. However, their base was already very strong, and they've added Frattesi, who's one of the best Italian midfielders, so they got a strong Italian blueprint there. The system is well drilled, 3-5-2, a little bit more of depth with Quadrado on the right-hand side. Many Inter fans don't like him because he's Juventus past, but I'm sure he's going to play a lot of minutes. Carlos Augusto on the left-hand side, who played for Monza, so Monza are a little bit weaker going into this game. But really, when you look at the goal scoring department, I think with Arnautovic replacing Dzeko and with Thuram replacing Lukaku, considering that Thuram is not a centre forward, Inter might have issues. Of course, Lautaro last season scored 21 goals, so he's well capable of doing it again and maybe going above the figures. But sometimes against teams that defend deep, that will sit and try, obviously, not to make you play well, you might need something else in attack. We will see. However, the objective this season for Inter is to win the title, to get the second star in the shirt, so the 20th Italian Scudetto. I think it will be really, really difficult to repeat what they did in Europe last season. Lost 5 games at home last season, Inter, but finished with the best home defense. The beginning of the season, really, that would cost Inter the title challenge. They lost 4 of the first 8 games last season at the beginning. And now for Monza, this season this summer they spent less than what they spent last summer when they brought a lot of players. So obviously now they try to solidify that team. Some of the loans players like Rovella have left, Sensi has gone back to Inter. They got new players, as I mentioned, of course, D'Ambrosio, Gagliardini. I mean, they look like a good side. I think they were gonna be okay because they will continue to play on the front foot. They continue to play the good stuff. They got a good manager in Palladino who's courageous, and they got good players in midfield, the likes of Churria, of course, Pessina, Caprari up front, a bit of experience as well. I think they're gonna be entertaining as well this season. Monza last year they were the only side never to be involved in a 0-0 draw, so normally it's not a dull match. They won at San Siro against Inter 1-0, probably one of the most deceptive scoreline ever, because Inter had millions of chances. Di Gregorio made a lot of saves. Then Monza scored. It should have been at least a 2-2 or maybe 2-1 for Inter game. Scored 23 goals away from home. They defeated away from home Monza, Juventus, Bologna, Sassuolo, of course, Inter as well. I think it's gonna be an entertaining one, really. Inter clean sheet, I can't see it really this time. I think it's gonna be an over 2.75 goals, 184. If Inter wants to win this one, need to score at least 2 goals, I guess. If there are only 3 goals in the game, you win half your stake.
Okay, as Mohamed is saying, Monza scores. So both teams to score is a good idea as well, or the over, as Danny is saying. Khalif is going for Inter 2, Monza 1. Could be a good, correct score. And Ibrahim is also telling us that Inter shouldn't lose the first half against Monza. Lautaro to score for Wanchun. Hello, Lyle. Hello, everyone. Also, we have a couple of people writing to us from the Netherlands. And by the way, of course, our Sure Bets tool should work in the Netherlands or everywhere you are. Just select the bookmakers in your country and you will always only see the bookmakers in your country. Danny, let's move on to the games we have on Sunday. Roma, Salernitana. Roma fans are very angry with their management because they are not signing any players. What a poor market after losing the Europa League final against Sevilla. Endika, Awar, they are the only signings. Lost
Paredes and Sanchez. Renato
Sanchez
just arrived. It's a new midfield, but they let Matic go as well. So
exactly, yeah. Matic gone, Roger Ibañez gone to Arabia, and Salernitana another season in Serie A, still with Paulo Sousa. They got Candreva, for instance, a classic in the Serie A. Danny, This Roma is worse than last season, as everyone is talking about.
Same as, I would say. I don't think it's any worse, but I don't think it's as things stand, it's better because they're going to be without Tammy Abraham at least until February because of his knee ligament injury. Haven't signed any striker. They're going to line up for this one. Sorry?
Belotti again.
Well, Belotti from last season. Number of goals. Me and Belotti last season have got one thing in common. Number of goals in Serie A, 0. I didn't score. He didn't score, but he played and I didn't. Anyway, but he did score a few in the Europa League. He didn't start many games, but it was a bit disappointing. So, and they're going to be without Dybala for this game. Surprise, surprise, because he's injured. Surprise, surprise. But, last year, when he was there, he was outstanding, was the best Roma player, but they really suffered to create chances when he wasn't there. And even in the Europa League final, when they had to take him off, yes, you could tell they were struggling. So the lineup this Sunday is going to be Belotti and El Shaarawy. Mourinho is unhappy. Mourinho is unhappy with the management, with Thiago Pinto, with the Fredkin. He will expect something more because this is the first season in charge. And after 2 sixth place finished and 2 European finals, one won, one lost, he needs to qualify them for the Champions League. Otherwise, it will be a failure unless he wins the Europa League again. But as things stand, you look at Milan, you look at Lazio, look at Napoli, Juventus, I think they got something more than Roma. What Roma have under Mourinho is the mentality and being able to manage the tight margins. Last year, they won 7 games 1-0, 3 games 2-0, and they only scored 28 goals in 19 domestic league games. So the numbers are quite poor, frankly, but they were able to shut down shop, sometimes, get the ugly win, especially when they were playing in Europe. And this is what they're going to resort to. But can they do it every week in Serie A and finish on the top 4? It's going to be difficult. Salernitana, on the other hand, completely the opposite. High-scoring side. They scored 48 goals last season in Serie A, 11 best attack. And the leaky defense, 62 goals conceded, 3rd worst defense in the league. And often they were saved by Ochoa. Ochoa and Boulaïdia and Candreva saved Salernitana, obviously with Paulo Sousa changing the system and made them play more on the front foot. But if you look at the expected points based on the expected goals, you'll find something really interesting. Salernitana had 11 more points than what they should have based on expected goals. Now, this is not an exact science, but tells you that things can change very quickly for them. They were a little bit fortunate as well. And should Boulaïdia not score the 14 goals that he scored last season, maybe only score 10 or 7. Candreva, by the way, is 36. Last season, 7 goals and 5 assists. Can they hit the same number? If they don't, they could be in trouble because the formation, the squad is almost unchanged. It's the same. They haven't signed many starters. So they could be in trouble here with this setup. But for this one, I do feel this is going to be another dirty old Mourinho job. And I'm going to go for an under. I'm going to go for an under 2.5 goals. I know last season he finished 2-2 in the league. I think it's going to be a win for Mourinho, win 2-0. I'm going to go for under 2.5 goals, 187.
It was a 2-2 result at the Olimpico in the last game of the season for Serie A, thinking already in the Europe finals. But they played this game on the 14th of August in Salerno, and Roma got an ugly victory, 1-0 in Salerno. So that's why it would be a good idea going for the under, as Mohamed is telling us, or for a 1-0 result, as Khalif is telling us, the master of tight margins, Jose Mourinho. Perhaps we see more goals in the Sassuolo Atalanta, although these two teams have been very active in the transfer window, especially selling players. Sassuolo without Raspadori, Locatelli, Junior Traoré, Fratesi. If I check the list, Atalanta, of course, selling Højlund, getting Scamacca, and Scamacca's first game is going to be against his former team, Sassuolo. Atalanta trying to step up, Danny, and play again in the Champions League. Two entertaining teams, I guess, but what to expect about both of them?
I think Atalanta last season overachieved with the qualification to the Europa League. They were not the 6th best team in Italy, and in the end they managed to do that, and they showcased good football, some very good youngsters, of course, Højlund as well as Lukman. And now they've done a bit of business in the transfer market. Got new faces on the left wing. Kolasinac, former Arsenal defender, backer from the Bundesliga. The return of Scamacca is interesting because the last time he played in Italy, scored 16 goals for Sassuolo, was the best striker, the best Italian striker that season. Moved to West Ham, didn't quite work out. Maybe the team wasn't suited for him. He had an injury as well. Let's see how it goes. But Atalanta also broke the transfer market record by signing Touré from Almeria, 7 goals, 2 assists, paid 30 million. So it's a lot of money for this player. He's quick. We know that he's gonna probably be on the bench. Let's see what happens. They sold Boga as well. Maybe Zapata is on his way to Roma. So a little bit of changes there for Atalanta that will have to play in Europe. So let's see how they do it, playing 3 games in a week. Last season, Atalanta had a good advantage not to have to play in Europe. And with Sassuolo, this is going to be the big question mark. Is this going to be Domenico Berardi, last game ever for Sassuolo after 11 years playing for them? He's basically the player that has been more attached to a club recently, history in Italy. 133 goals for the Nero Verdi. He's in talks to join Juventus. And I think Sassuolo season depends a lot of him. We saw him last season when he wasn't there. They created less. The rest of the team is pretty much unchanged. Pinamonti didn't have a great season last season, but Lauriente did, so he's looking to confirm himself. Maybe you have to look at the numbers here to tackle this betting pick. 9 of the last games between these two teams have been both to score. 8 of the last games between these two teams have been over 2.5 goals and both to score. Only 1 draw in the last 11 games. So normally they do go for it. It's a goal fest. Atalanta were the 3rd best away side last season. Sassuolo were average at home, lost 7, winning only 2 of the last 6, but they managed to beat Juventus in that process. I'm going to go for a classic, over 2.5 goals and both to score, 257.
Well, we expect goals, I guess. Wanchuk is telling us Berardi will play and score. That's my bet, other than both teams to score, maximum for both teams to score as well, Danny. So it looks like we have a quorum. We have an agreement for this game. Next one is Lecce. Lecce still with D'Aversa in charge. I was checking about the market value of the squads in Serie A, and Lecce is the 3rd worst. So I guess they will be down, fighting to avoid relegation, as they fought last season as well. They were saved by only 5 points. And this Lazio, Danny, remember that they will play Champions League. They still have Sarri in charge, but they lost Milinkovic-Savic or Acerbi, and I'm not very sure about their market. They got Tati Castellanos from Girona. Not a great deal
against
of
Barcelona,
names,
no? Scored 3 against Barcelona last year.
Against Real Madrid.
Real Madrid, against Real Madrid, for Girona.
4 actually was against Real Madrid, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken. But not sure if they got a better squad, no? If they want to fight also in the Champions League, at least in the group stages.
It's going to be tougher because last season Sarri was able to rotate pretty much his entire squad in the Europa League at the beginning and the Conference League when they got knocked out. You can't do that in the Champions League, especially if you're in a tough group. You get beaten soundly. So this obviously is going to affect their fitness week in and week out. But for the first 3 weeks of the Italian League, they should be fine because there is no Champions League. There is no midweek game. And Lazio have a strong enough squad to get off to a winning start. Let's not forget Lazio last season were extremely organized, were very solid, very compact, scored less goals compared to the previous year with Sarri in charge, but they looked more in control. I mean, that win at Napoli in mid-March when they went to the San Paolo and won 1-0, that was a masterclass. The way they shut down Napoli and they were able to keep possession as well and being proactive. They kept 21 clean sheets last season, Lazio. 2nd best defense, best away defense with 12 goals conceded, 11 wins away, 37 points. These are really, really good numbers for a team that finished 2nd in the table, above Inter, above Juventus, above Milan. And, I think they were really good. And normally, Sarri's sides improve with the time. The more time you give him, the better the players become and the more accustomed to his tactics become. Yes, they lost Milinkovic-Savic, but they got some very good players to replace him. Rovella from on loan from Juventus was excellent for Monza last season. I think he's going to improve on the Serie a lot. Kamada, Europa League winner with Eintracht Frankfurt, is very similar to Luis Alberto, so I'm really curious to see how he can play them both together. And yes, they might need a bit more strength, depth in midfield, but Castellanos, Isaksen up front, maybe to give Immobile a little bit of rest. I think they're going to start strongly. And for Lecce, I'm really worried. I tipped them to go down. I think it pays around 180 for Lecce to go down. Last season, they stayed up by scoring only 34 goals. I think in the end, they rode their luck. And funny enough, they took 4 points of Lazio, one in Puglia, and drew at the Olimpico, which was decisive for them to get saved. But if you look at the way they played, they were second from bottom for average ball possession, bottom for shots on target, average less than 3 shots on target per game. They haven't got goals. The top scorer last season was Strefezza, the midfielder, who scored 3 penalties and 8 goals in total. They sold Seire to Saudi Arabia, 6 goals. Colombo returned to Milan, 5 goals. They haven't got a number 9 at the moment, and unless this Swedish Almqvist, who they got from the Russian league, proves to be a phenomenon, but he never scored more than 5 goals in his career, I think they're going to really, really struggle. And the new manager, D'Aversa, likes to play attacking football. Are they really set up to play attacking football with him? Or they're just going to be defense, defense, defense? But if they cannot nick a goal, yeah, they'll end up losing most of the games, really. I think they lose. I think this one they lose. I'm going to go for a cautious one. I mean, Lazio to win 225. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. But you should take it. But if you want to be cautious, Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Lazio, 187. So if they draw, you lose half a stake. They can't lose against Lecce, really.
Benjamin or Khalif or Ibrahim are going all for Lazio to win here. Lecce is the youngest team so far in Serie A, 23.2 as an average, and as I mentioned before, the third with less market value after Frosinone is the worst, and then Cagliari. Well, Lecce, they are going to struggle, that's for sure. And the last game on Sunday, interesting one, Udinese Juve, because Udinese, especially at the beginning of last season, they were great and they were on the top of the standings, still with the manager, Andrea Sotil. They got Brenner as the main signing, and Juve, Dani, no European football. For them, no Di Maria, no Cuadrado. They got Wea, they got Keane, Locatelli. Do they have a better team? Can they challenge for the Scudetto? They are the third favorites to win the Scudetto, remember.
They could challenge if Allegri manages to give them a style of football, an identity, manages to find his right formation, not changing starting 11 every single game. It's a bit of a task, you know. The last 2 seasons have been without trophies for Juventus, and last season they were tipped to win the league, and it was a big disappointment. Okay, had they not been penalized by the FA, they would have finished 4th, same as Inter, 18 points behind Napoli. I don't think they closed the gap so much in terms of the points that they can recover to Napoli, but not playing in Europe is a big, big, big advantage, especially in a league like Serie A, which, let's face it, the overall quality of the league has gone worse and worse. And I think what keeps the leagues afloat is the fact that we have very good managers and we can still produce a couple of young talents every now and then. But really, there's been, I don't think we can be able as a Serie A to achieve what we achieved last season in Europe. But Juventus has got an advantage, of course, in this case. Look, the pressure is on them. They need to do better than last season, and they need to start the season with a win, of course. Last season, they finished with the 6th best attack, 56 goals, only scored 18 goals away from home. Cremonese, who got relegated, scored 3 more goals than them. So they were very not very proactive. They were very clinical, if you like. In fact, they won 9 away games in Serie A last season without conceding. So they were the masters of a clean sheet away from home, especially against a struggling team. They were able to win 1-0, 2-0 in forgettable games, but they get the job done. Then when it comes to play the proper sides, or they come to play the side that got more answers, then they struggle. If you think about the way they shut down in the semi-final, return of the Europa League semi-final against Sevilla, that was criminal. I think they had the game controlled and they couldn't really answer to Sevilla attacks. So this is gonna be tricky for them as a season, but I think the market is still open. They might still sell one of the key players, maybe Vlahovic or Chiesa. They need to balance the book, but as a squad, it could be enough to challenge for top 4, maybe top 2. Udinese collected 27 points last season, was the best domestic record since 4 years. They started the season very, very strong with 6 wins in the first 8. They beat Roma, they beat Inter at the beginning of the season, and then towards the end of the season beat Milan, but then it became a little bit hit and miss. Since Deulofeu got injured in January, they really struggled to create attacking options, attacking scoring opportunities. They ended up shooting from distance a lot. Their attacks became much more slow, and they missed a little bit of quality. So I think they got found out towards the end of the season, and they finished with 4 consecutive defeats. And this season, you look at Udinese and you wonder, are they actually weaker? They haven't got to Doge, went to Spurs. Pereira lost as a free transfer. Becao, the captain, went to Galatasaray. Samardzic is going to leave. Probably is going to join Inter or another team, depending what his dad wants him to do. And other players as well. I think Arslan as well. So you wonder, are they actually weaker? I think they are. I'm going to be bold this one. Juventus win 197. Well, it's then 195 is shortened, but when I checked, it was 197.
Well, and the head-to-head, we were checking in the last 12 games were 10 victories, I think, for Juventus. We were seeing it before in the screen. Juve to win for Benjamin, for Khalif, halftime draw for Marco Pol. And it's funny the thing about Vlahovic, no, Danny, how he lost the plot. He was signed as a big star from Fiorentina, and in 1 year and a half, he's lost. Let's see if they finally do the swap or whatever they do.
Needs to improve part of his games, ball retention, ball control, playing with his back against the wall. But also you have to say, at Fiorentina, he received many more crosses, many more passes inside the box, and more touches inside the box. The style of play doesn't suit him, and that's why Allegri desperately wants Lukaku, who probably is more suited to play on the counter-attack, but Lukaku is 30. Vlahovic is 23. Juventus fans really don't want this swap to happen. Let's see what happens towards the end of the season.
Calcio mercato is always crazy, so we still have 2 weeks. Let's see what happens. And we have 2 more games. Torino, Cagliari back. Professor Claudio Ranieri is back on Serie A, back on the bench. Also, for instance, they got Shomudorov or Sulemana, Cagliari as big signings, and Torino, Dani, a lot of Balkan players as always. The manager is Ivan Juric. They got Ilic, they got Vlasic. A lot of character in Torino.
Yes, and this is could be potentially the surprise package of the season. I'm not saying you have to put your money on it, but to finish Torino, to finish in the top 4, pays 25, okay? Is a stronger side from last season because they added Bellanova, Tamez, they confirmed Vlasic. This is the 3rd season in charge for Juric. Stranger things have happened in football. If you look at the midfield of Torino, Ricci, Ilic, too young, very good on the ball, midfielders. Sanabria last season scored 12 goals. Everyone said, they're going to be lost without Bellotti. They haven't got a number 9. They managed to spread the goals between the attackers with the contribution of other players, Radonic, Miranchuk, who's no longer there, of course. So I think they really mastered a very good performances and played well. The home form wasn't great for Torino. No wins in the last 7 home games. And the big problem sometimes was that they were not able to score enough for what they created. That was the only side in Italy never scored more than 2 goals in the league. Cagliari, on the other hand, newly promoted in a dramatic fashion because they won the playoff final against Bari in the last minute with a goal from Pavoletti. But with Ranieri at the helm, I am confident they can stay up because they are an experienced side. They've added more experienced players with Augello, Yankto, you mentioned Shomudorov. Unfortunately, Lapadula is going to be injured for the beginning of the season, but he should be back by October. It will be a long season for them, and you're not expecting them to collect 50 points. Probably they're going to finish with 36, 37, but it should be okay. I mean, Sampdoria, 2019-2020, they hired Ranieri, and they were desperate, and he managed to save them. The following season, he finished ninth with them. The quality of the Sampdoria side maybe was a little bit better, but I don't think that better compared to Cagliari. I think here there could be a potential upset. Cagliari on the Asian handicap plus 0.75, 194, which means if they lose by one goal, you only lose half a stake. Any other result that is a draw or a win for Cagliari, you win. Torino needs to win by 2 goals margin for you to lose the full stake.
Okay, Calif is going for Cagliari to win. By the way, Danny, then you mentioned Lecce, Frosinone, and the other third team, let's say, to struggle and go down.
I think it's one between Verona, maybe Genoa. Okay, I said it should be okay, but for me, Frosinone, Lecce, Verona, Genoa. Yeah, I think these are the 4 candidates. Cagliari will be okay. Salernitana, I think, will be okay. Empoli will be okay. And yes, unless a disaster happens, Udinese will be okay.
Okay, and we still have one more game to analyze. This is Bologna-Milan. Bologna not very active in the market, a team that is always in the middle of the table, still with Thiago Motta, and Milan really active in this transfer market. You will tell me, but it looks okay, even if they lost Tonali, as we all know, but they got Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek, Chukwueze, Musa. As I said, very active in the market.
Yeah, sold 1, bought 6, because also bought Okafor. You mentioned Pulisic as well. So yeah, I mean, they changed completely. Reinders from AZ Alkmaar, one of the best midfielders last season in Europe, they changed completely the outlet of the midfield and attack. And I think what they brought is very interesting because they got players who can play in more than one position. Pulisic can play behind the strikers, can play on the right. Loftus-Cheek as well, can play wing back as well. We've seen him. So maybe we'll see a less rigid Milan this year, less stuck with a 4-3 formation. They can change. Sometimes they could play even with Okafor and Giroud up front with a man behind them. I think the main man will still going to be Rafael Leao, of course. They extended his contract. So, yes, that was good business. Milan need a stronger goal scorer or somebody to score 20 goals to be able to win the title. And in the last 2 seasons, they haven't had him. Giroud and Leao, they were stuck between 14, 12, or 15 goals, which is a good tally for Leao. But I think he needs to score more goals, more simple goals, more stupid goals to get to the next level and help Milan to challenge really for the title. They haven't had a goal scorer to score more than 20 goals since 2010-2011 with Ibrahimovic. Now, this is the first game of the season. Potentially could be a banana skin for Milan. So many changes, new players who haven't played in Italy before. They might need time to adapt and bed in. Let's not forget, last season, Milan were really disappointing in the league. Had Juventus not been deducted the points, they would have finished 5th. So from champions to 5th. That's really, really bad. And the away form was poor. They only won 7 games away, scored 23 goals, same as Monza and less than Torino on their travel. Bologna, on the other hand, unchanged. There will be no Arnautovic. They sold him to Inter for 10 million. Amazing business to sell a 34 years old for 10 million. They signed Ndoye from Basel, who's not a goal scorer, by the way, 6 goals and 4 goals in the last 2 seasons. And then the big gamble is, can the players who last season helped Bologna to have a good year, Orsolini scored 11 goals, Ferguson 7 goals, Posch, the defender, 6 goals, can they repeat the same number That's the gamble, really. I like the way Thiago Motta made them play, proactive, attacking as well. They finished the season strong, 5 games unbeaten. At home, they were solid. They only lost 3 games. They beat Inter, they beat Lazio. They drew with Lazio, they drew in Milan. So they took points from all the Serie A top sides. But they haven't beaten Milan in the last 11 games, Bologna. I think this is possibly a both to score, and I think for Milan to go and win this game, they need to score more than 1 goal for sure. I'm going to go over 2.25 goals, 186.
Okay, Danny, Calif is going for a draw, for instance, with both teams to score, Bologna 1, Milan 1. A lot of information, a lot of input from Dani Fisichella, as always, in this new season for Serie A. Remember that if you want to place your bets in Serie A, perhaps you want to use 1xBet and their great welcome bonus with Oddspedia. Dani, you get 30% more in the welcome bonus. So up to 130%, you can get 520 euros. Use the promo code ODDSPEDIAYOUTUBE and grab this great offer. And we talk a lot about teams in Serie B. Remember that we also have a documentary, by the way, in our channel, Danny, about the story of Elversberg.
I lovely.
You watched it.
I loved it. I watched the old, my summer evenings. Yeah, three episodes. Fantastic story. The story of Elversberg. Yeah, really, really well shot. I mean, it's great. It's good. These people say it's a fairy tale. I mean, sometimes it's a bit rhetoric, but it really is. You should watch it.
We can go to Salerno, for instance, and record one about the 3rd straight season for Salernitana in Serie A. There are so many.
Or Frosinone if they get saved.
Frosinone, and we go to Lazio. Why not? Well, Danny, let's finish the video with your safe bet.
Well, as we talk about Frosinone, Napoli to beat Frosinone, I'm afraid 146.
By the way, all our safe bets from the previous week were correct, so we got our international ACCA on the back. This Napoli to win will be in this week's ACCA. And Danny, your ACCA for the Serie A?
Genoa Fiorentina over 1.5 goals, Inter Monza over 2.5 goals, Lazio Asian handicap 0 away at Lecce, Juventus Asian handicap 0 away at Udinese. The total odds 5-12.
Okay, this is Danny's ACCA. On Thursday, of course, we will have more videos. We still have to analyze Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, League. And so, Danny Fisichella, is very nice to see you back. Thanks, everyone,
nice
for
to see you
commenting,
as well, Edu.
for watching
thanks
the
everyone
video.
For watching. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Press the like,